Okay. Okay, so let's start. Yeah, let me introduce Oksana Romaniuk, Executive Director of the Institute for Mass Information and representative of Reporters Without Borders organization. So she has like не работает звук, okay? А сейчас? О, супер, спасибо. So yeah. So Oksana has like the recent update from the Crimea with the situation of what's going on with journalists, how it's going on, and I think that she can share with you the latest information. Please, Oksana, thank you.
Thank you, dear colleagues. So I would like to update you about the situation with freedom of speech in Crimea. During the last 2 weeks, we have recorded 63 cases of different kinds of attacks on journalists and media. It means that every day 5 journalists suffer in Crimea. The situation is really very negative. To be a journalist in Crimea is now dangerous. 24 people were brutally beaten with equipment broken. We have recorded 6 cases when journalists were not allowed to enter Crimea. Those are only 6 cases. For instance, one case is a car with journalists who wasn't allowed to enter Crimea. Like yesterday evening, we had that situation with the Italian camera group. 2 journalists were kidnapped on March 9, and only after 2 days they were released. So obviously the local self-proclaimed government has announced a war to journalists. Physical security right now is the major challenge for journalists and for media in Crimea. The second problem is informational war. Yesterday, Russian self-proclaimed government cut off finally digital frequencies. Previously, they cut off terrestrial frequencies of Ukrainian TV channels, and yesterday they finally cut off digital communication, digital frequencies. And right now, 90% of Crimean population have no access to Ukrainian television. They do not receive information. This situation is terrible violation of human rights in Crimea, and it is very important that the world knows about that. Local population has no access to information. Local journalists are really very pressed. We have recorded 7 cases of attacks of armed people with guns storming into offices of local media and forcing or cutting electricity or forcing or threatening local journalists. So they really need help. And today we have got to know another information connected with the referendum in Crimea, and they introduced a kind of laws or resolution, new regulations of access to journalists, of access of journalists to polling stations. Those regulations are absolutely contrary to the Ukrainian legislation, and those regulations stipulate that a journalist should receive a permit, special permit, to have access to a polling station to cover the elections. That is contrary. That is not democratic. Absolutely contrary to Ukrainian legislation. Moreover, the journalist is obliged not to report negative information. So what is that? Who will decide what is negative? So all critical information is banned or what? So you see that this is really terrible situation, and we understand that it is very difficult to work now for journalists in Crimea, and as we say, a journalist in Crimea should act like a vampire, you know, do not reflect in mirrors, do not appear on light, to be secure. We call on our colleagues, journalists, to arrive in Crimea. We are ready to help. We are absolutely open. We understand that information right now is the only means that can help in the conditions, because the law doesn't work there. Only publicity is important. Please go there, help local journalists, help local population, but at the same time, be aware of risks. The risks are really very high. Very many our colleagues have suffered. So you should go properly equipped, and you should think about not exposing yourself as a journalist. So think about using mobile phones or different other means of communication. So thank you, and if you have any questions, please ask, because we carry out a constant monitoring of the situation with freedom of speech in Crimea, and well, we have different information and figures.
Do you have the questions?
And one more point, very important, is that we understand that there is a very big flow of information coming from Russia, particularly the Russian Foreign Ministry, which issues statements like day and night about the situation in Ukraine and distorting the information. It is very important to check this information with the Ukrainian human rights groups, Ukrainian experts, NGOs, journalists, and just because this is an informational law which is carried out by Putin against Ukraine. This is a fact, and we should be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Do you have the questions regarding the situation? Okay. Thank you, Oksana, very much. Да.
Так.
Одне питання і ми тоді почнемо. Будь ласка.
Українською, так?
Можете говорити українською.
Мене звуть Інна Данченко. Я представляю
Інна Данченко,
громадське об'єднання «Ми жінки», так?
Public Union, We the Women. The question is about information war. As a journalist, what do you think? How in the Crimea it is possible to oppose the disinformation of the Russian media? I think that Ukrainian mass media are blocked there. We can do this out of the Crimea. We can broadcast information on Ukraine. There is no Ukrainian language TV channels. There are some providers who are sort of broadcasting through cable to a small part in Simferopol, and the information space of the Crimea has been cleared of Ukrainian media. Unfortunately, Ukrainian human rights groups or law enforcement bodies were not prepared for this. I have a question about Crimean media. The Crimean media are working well. Some of them, for instance, ATR TV channel is working, and probably it's working because almost 100 Crimean Tatars are spending their nights there who are ready to defend it, and there's some understanding in Russian authorities that if they are going to storm this channel, Crimean Tatars are ready to protect this, to defend this channel, and there will be bloodshed. However, they are pressurizing this television channel, so we cannot tell that they are broadcasting sufficiently balanced information, and they also broadcast in Crimean Tatar language. ATR TV channel. What do you say whether Ukrainian authorities should take into account the OSCE statement that taking off the air Russian channels in Ukraine is a manifestation of censorship? First of all, the statement of the National Council for Broadcasting has a recommendatory character because they are not procurators' offers, not a security service. There are no technical procedures whereby the National Council can take those channels off air. They can only recommend to do this. As far as I know, eastern regions and southern regions have not heeded this recommendation at all, and the Russian channels there are still broadcasting there. No influence in this case. On the other hand, Ukrainian channels are completely off air in the Crimea and other places. In order to take off the Russian TV channels off air, there has to be a decision of the Procurator General's office or security service, and it has to be written according to the law, because the Ukrainian legislation provides for this in case there is a threat to Ukrainian national security, and there are some international conventions that provide for this. On the other hand, I want to draw your attention to the fact that Russian media are engaged in propaganda. There is an onslaught of fake information, and our colleagues from Telecritic since February are monitoring the information broadcast by Russian television channels. Regrettably, those are just manipulations in order to inflare aggression, and I, as a media expert, think that there should be a selection of news from Russia in order for the society to understand what is happening, what we mean when we are talking about the onslaught of fake information. And as far as I understand, for international community, this can look as something that contradicts liberal values and requires additional argumentation. But we are open, we are ready to welcome here representatives of any can come here, of groups that protect human rights. Please come here, investigate the situation here, form your own opinion on what's going on, your analysis of the situation. We are ready to provide any information to journalists and experts, including Russian human rights activists. We know that Andrei Yurov is in Crimea now, and Dmitry Makarov is there. They are human rights activists from Russia who were providing quite an adequate evaluation of what's happening in Ukraine. Am I right in understanding that not Russian media dominates the Ukrainian space now? No, in Ukraine, Ukrainian. In the Crimea, Russian media dominates. Well, Crimea is Ukraine still, but Govcom Information Agency. To what extent the internet is effective in the Crimea? The matter is that internet does work, but it only covers 37% of the territory of the Crimea. The penetration is very low. There are satellite dishes, but they are Russian ones, and they transmit mostly Russian TV channels. The technical coverage is very scarce, and even if we send their technical specialists and provide cables, we still have to provide people with computers. 37% penetration of internet. We also had information that some providers were taken off internet and blocked some sites, including some sites with the news. They do not do this, but who knows what's going to happen next. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. If you have this data, how the population treats, do they know this is fake? As one famous person, whose surname I forgot, says that show a horse's back for a month on television, then it becomes a hero. I know that the population was not happy with Ukrainians' channels being taken off the air. Well, they were watching some drama there and soap operas, but still some, let's say, old women are very disappointed with this. They cried, they wept, they do not understand what's going on, and this became a shock for them. They came out of their dream, they understood what is happening, and local people are being explained that their channels were taken off the air because of technical reasons, but people do understand that technical reasons are not the reason for taking off the air all the channels. So I think the understanding of the events is there. And by the way, local people were protesting in order to support Ukrainian channels. I think this happened the day before yesterday in Simferopol.